lawyers don't.
It's been over 20 years now since players first stepped off the tram in Half-Life, spawning what would become one of the most beloved and infamous franchises of all time. Naturally, ports were planned, but only some made it to release. Half-Life for the Macintosh was not one of them. Not only was the port scrapped, it served as the death knell for the small studio in charge of it. This is their story. Sierra announced that the Macintosh version of Half-Life was in development by Logicware in spring of 1999. Their Half-Life port was supposed to have platform parity with the Windows version, with the goal of allowing crossplay with Windows users for the game's multiplayer. This meant that Logicware would be retained for years after the game was completed to patch the Mac version. The game was set to ship that fall. Logicware Incorporated was a studio located in Covina, California, founded in 1995. The company released two original titles, Defiance and Astro Rock 2000. But Logicware specialized in porting existing Windows games to the Mac and 3DO. Their actual library seems to vary depending on where you ask, but it seems as if they are involved with some high-profile ports, like Quake 2 and Wolfenstein 3D. I was fortunate enough to speak with Logicware CEO and games industry veteran Rebecca Heinemann, who graciously answered some of my questions about the Phantom Half-Life port. According to her, Apple provided Sierra with estimates that the Half-Life port would sell 1 million copies. For context, she told me that the Mac market at the time sold 100,000 units for a smash hit. Apple was making big promises that Heinemann was later told they knew couldn't be kept. In Matt Barton's book Honoring the Code, Heinemann recounted playing the nearly finished game with the team. She said, "Everyone at Logicware had some hand in that game. It was a labor of love, and we made that game rockin'. We were playing against PC versions. In fact, we had a special server that was totally interactive and everything.
Nicely done.
Things were going smoothly. Then the pre-order numbers came in.
Warning, electrical damage detected.
In late October of 1999, just 3 weeks before the Mac version was supposed to ship, Valve and Sierra pulled the plug. Sierra had discovered that the sales projections Apple had provided were greatly exaggerated. Heinemann told me, when stores started pre-orders, Valve was surprised at how low they were. They were in the 100,000 range, which would have been a huge profitable hit, but it wasn't 1 million. She remembers the phone call. My friend at Sierra told me, "Are you sitting down?" So, I sat down. "We're canceling Half-Life." I just dropped the phone. I picked it up and asked him to repeat it. "But can't we publish it? We'll pay you money." Nope. It was set in stone. It was done. It wasn't just that Sierra thought they'd lose money. They didn't want the game coming out at all. Heinemann says she remembers Mac users placing the blame on Logicware, but she reiterates the team did nothing wrong. The port was finished. The decision fell entirely on Valve. The public was looking for someone to blame for the cancellation of Half-Life Mac. We were under a gag order at the time, so we couldn't defend ourselves. As such, we got a lot of bad press. Valve has always been known for its puzzling business decisions, but it's hard to fathom why they'd cancel a completed game that would have performed well, even if not as well as they had planned. Heinemann has her own theory, and it has nothing to do with money. Even to this day, I'm struggling to understand why. However, even in 1999, Valve was not hurting for money, and they did have a huge Microsoft bias. The cancellation was definitely based on emotion instead of profit. According to Combine Overwiki, another attempt at bringing the game to Mac users was made sometime after Logicware, but ultimately didn't come true. A forum thread by user Barnes on ValveTime.net says that an individual referred to only as Lorenzo had a plan to bring the game to Mac. He figured that if he brought Valve the game, completely ready to go, with no investment on their part, he might be able to talk them into it. He had contacts at Valve, and supposedly knew the project lead at Logicware. though Heinemann says she knows nothing about the second attempt. Things were falling into place for Lorenzo. He had Apple on board, and all that was left was Gabe Newell's approval. For one reason or another, Newell outright rejected the project, and it was dead once again. Barnes says that a third entity had wanted to make the port happen, but no details are available and nothing ever came out of it. Less than a year after Half-Life Max Cancellation, Logicware closed its doors for good. Very little information about the death of Logicware is out there, so I asked Heinemann about the circumstances of its closure, and if she thought the bad press generated by Half-Life's cancellation harmed their chances of survival. It did hurt, but it really was a dishonest client and business partner that killed Logicware. The closure of Logicware was due to my business partner doing a backdoor deal with a client and taking a major project away. The loss of funding killed the firm. We formed Contraband Entertainment from the remains of Logicware. That project was Dragon's Lair 3D, an action-adventure platformer released on 6th generation consoles and PC. We were supposed to do it, says Heinemann, but my biz partner convinced our client he could do it for cheaper, and they could pocket the difference. In the end, the game they made was crap. We couldn't get a new gig in time. The company website's About page was edited to reflect upon its 5 years in business, wherein the author claimed that the studio was badly run. The post says that 2 more games were completed but never shipped, one of which likely referred to Half-Life. Logicware's final words were as follows. We never did any embedded systems or industrial control. Really, we were drunk. It was dark. Lies, all damned lies. Good night, everybody. Logicware is located east of Los Angeles in Covina, California, in a strip mall. We're surrounded by accountants. They evicted the fortune teller long ago. And there's this shoe guy. We keep an eye on him. At this point, our office serves mainly to house the cat. As for Half-Life for the Macintosh, it was never to see the light of day. The team was instructed to bury the code, and to this day, it hasn't resurfaced. Half-Life for the Macintosh is gone forever.